Hi, and welcome to the fourth video in the web programming lecture series. In the previous video, we were introduced to HTML and had a look at some basic tags. In this video, we aim to look at some more tags and some core concepts to HTML. We've already covered headings, paragraphs, and tables. And up next, we aim to cover comments, lists, divs and spans, and much more. Comments are a great way to make your code more maintainable by allowing you to explain what's happening in your code. They're implemented by going open angle bracket, exclamation mark, dash dash, insert your comment, dash dash, close angle bracket. We can then save our document, come over and refresh, and we can see that it hasn't been displayed on our web page. We may also want to bold some of our text. One way of doing this is by using the B tag. So we can go B, and we can close off B afterwards, save and refresh, and we can see now that programming has become bold. In the same manner, we can italicize programming by changing this to an I. We can see programming is now italicized. In HTML, we have two types of lists. We have an unordered list, which is bullet points, and an ordered list, which is numbers. So if we change this to a UL, which stands for unordered lists, we save this. We then put li around our bullet point to show that that's a list item. We can now save and refresh this, and we can see that we have two bullet points. Oh, I forgot to close this off. So now if we refresh that, we have one bullet point that says Web Programming Lecture Series. If I change this to an ordered list, which is an OL tag, save, refresh, you can see that bullet point becomes a 1, and we now have an ordered list. We can also nest these lists. So instead of having a list item, we may want to put in underneath an unordered list. Close it off. And then in this list, let's put in another bullet point, close off that point, save it, refresh it, and you can see now we have a nested list. Next, we're going to get into two of the most important tags in HTML programming, and that's divs and spans. So they're two of the most generic tags, meaning they're flexible enough to use in all types of situations. The main difference between the two is that a div is a block element, whereas a span is an inline element. This is an important concept in HTML. This means that when you start or close a div, the next tag to follow will start on a new line, whereas with a span element, the next tag will build up next to each other on the same line. We can see here, if I put another div underneath our existing div, I save and refresh it, it starts on a new line. Even if I put it on the same line, so if I go cut, paste, save, refresh, we can still see that it's on the same line. Whereas if I change this to a span, and I go cool, and then I close that span, and then I open another span, let's say, and I close that span, save it, refresh it, we can see that they come up next to each other on the same line. Other examples of block elements include the heading and paragraph tags, and other examples of inline tags include the bold tag and the italics tag. Next, I want to show you how to put images in. So if we go over here, we can see that I have an image called Russell1, and it's a PNG file, and it's in the same folder as the example HTML document I'm currently working in. So the way that I add this in is I go back to my document. We're going to use the img tag, and then we say source. And now we have to specify the relative URL, which is simply going to be russell1.png, and save and refresh. And you can see that my image has now been added in. We have two different ways of referencing a document, relative and absolute. Relative referencing means that we want to include or grab information from a file that is relative to our current folder. It is used for referring to documents we want to store on our server or on our computer. They are often other HTML files, CSS or JavaScript files, images, or some document that we may want the user to download from our web page. For example, if we wanted to put a profile picture on our web page, we could have a folder called images, which is in the same folder as our web page, and then refer to our profile picture by adding images/profile.png. The second type of referencing we have is absolute referencing. Absolute referencing refers to including or grabbing information from a file that is on a fixed place in the internet. An absolute reference will always start with a protocol, such as HTTP or HTTPS, and it will look like a URL. An example of where we may need this is if we had our own personal website and we wanted to reference where we went to university, we could put in a link to the CSC page by specifying the URL https://www.csc.unsw.edu.au. We need to be careful with both types of referencing. If we change our folder structure, our relatively referenced links will break. So after you've moved files around, double check your web page is still functioning as expected. Absolutely referenced links will only break if its given URL is changed. This brings us to our next concept of hyperlinking. If we think back to our introduction to the internet, we discussed how the web was not meant to be accessed in a linear fashion. That means it was not designed to go from page 1 to page 2 to page 3. Instead, it was designed to be a mass of documents that were connected via hyperlinks to form a huge web of connected information. If we take a look at the hyperlink Wikipedia page, we can see that we can access other Wikipedia pages through clicking on any of the text that is highlighted blue. These are hyperlinks. You can see that when we arrive on this page, we may choose to click on computing first, or data, or any other of the hyperlinks that are shown on this page. To put it simply, a hyperlink takes you to a destination by clicking on it. We have two types of hyperlinks, links and anchors. Links take you to a destination outside the current document, like another HTML document or a PDF, whereas anchors take you from one place within a document to another place within a document. Let's have a look at how we do this. We insert a hyperlink using the A tag, as seen here. The A tag has two main parts. href, seen here, refers to the referred document, either a relatively or absolutely referenced document. The other part to consider is whatever goes in between the A tag is the text that will appear for the user to click on to navigate to that destination. For example, let's include our Russell image. So russell1.png, and let's say link, let's make this look a bit nicer. We'll save, we'll refresh our web page. So now you can see our hyperlinks appeared, and let's click on it and it'll take us to the picture of Russell. We can also have a hyperlink to an absolutely referenced document. So if we go back, let's change this to https://www.google.com, save, we'll go link to Google, save, refresh our page. You now see we now have a link to Google, and when we click on it, it'll now take us to google.com. A quick tip with this one is currently, if we click on our link, it'll take us to Google in the same tab. Whereas if we come back over here and we add in target equals underscore blank, we save it, we come back over and refresh. Now when we click on link to Google, it'll open Google in a new tab. So we now have our original web page still open, and now we also have Google open in a separate tab. So the other type of hyperlink we mentioned was an anchor, which means linking to another section within the same document. So before we do that, let's add in a lot of content. So I'm going to go hello, and then we have a BR for a new line. I'm just going to copy and paste this heaps of times. And let's close off that with a div. Save and refresh, and you can see now that we can scroll down and we see a whole bunch of different hellos. Maybe add in a few more. Save, refresh. Yep, so now we've got hello, 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 over and over again. So now I'm going to add in another div. And what we're going to do is give it a name. So this is going to come in handy when we look at CSS. I'm going to call it footer. And this means that we're going to refer to this div with the ID footer anytime we mention footer. So Let's go ahead and put a H1 in. Let's say footer, close it off, save it, refresh this page, scroll down, and you'll see we now have footer at the bottom. So now we can refer to this in our hyperlink by typing #footer. So let's go ahead and save this, refresh, we'll scroll up, and now when we click on link to another section, you'll see it will take us down to footer. So anytime we want to have a link to another place on our document, what we do is we give our destination an ID, a unique one, let's say footer, and then in our A tag, we're going to go # whatever the name of the ID is. So in this video, we had a look at comments and lists, divs and spans, block versus inline elements, hyperlinking, referencing, and giving IDs to tags.